Hello, I'm Katrina Hanford-Smith and I'm the Deputy Head here at Nottingham Girls High School. I'm also the Senior DSL, Designated Safeguarding Lead, and so one of my main responsibilities is the safeguarding and welfare of our girls. This is a hugely important part of my job, and so we've put together this video to help explain the key principles of our safeguarding policy at Nottingham Girls High School. Throughout the video, you'll meet my other DSLs, the Deputy DSLs. They are Laura Fowler, Head of the Junior School, Peter Elkington, Deputy Head in the Junior School, Erin Skelton, Head of Sixth Form, and Brenda Williams, the School Nurse. We are all responsible for the safety and welfare of our girls, and the DSLs are the link people to help the rest of the staff to deal with any safeguarding issues. But one of the key principles of safeguarding is that it is everybody's responsibility. As such, as you're joining NGHS as a teacher or in whatever capacity you're working with us, safeguarding also needs to be an important part of your remit. So you will have been given a policy, and what I would ask you to do is read this and understand it. If you do have any questions, then please do contact us. But this video should help you to understand the key principles of the safeguarding policy. If you do have any safeguarding concerns, then please feel free to contact me. My email address is k.handford-smith@not.gdst.net. My mobile number is 07849 396979, so please do give me a ring. If you're in school, my office is through the atrium building into the history department and at the back of the history department, so please do pop in and ask any questions or raise any concerns if you need to.
Hello, I'm Laura Fowler. I'm the Head of the Junior School and I'm a Deputy Designated Safeguarding Lead at Nottingham Girls High School. I'm going to talk to you today about the 4 different types of abuse, the signs and symptoms. A really easy way to remember the 4 types of abuse is using the acronym PENS. P, physical, E, emotional, N, neglect, S, sexual. I'm now going to take you through the 4 different types of abuse, the signs and symptoms, and you've probably wondered who this is sitting on my lap. This is Delilah, our school dog. So I'm going to begin with physical abuse. Physical abuse is a form of abuse which may involve hitting, shaking, throwing, poisoning, burning or scalding, drowning, suffocating or otherwise causing physical harm to a child. Physical harm may also be caused when a parent or carer fabricates the symptoms or deliberately induces illness in a child. Signs that you should look for of physical abuse may include unexplained injuries or burns, untreated injuries, bruises or abrasions around the face, bilateral injuries, e.g. 2 bruised eyes, bite marks or bruising abrasions to lips, cheeks or the outer ear. So let's move on to emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is the persistent emotional maltreatment of a child, such as to cause severe and adverse effects on the child's emotional development. It may involve conveying to children that they are worthless or unloved, inadequate or valued only insofar as they meet the needs of another person. It may include not giving the child opportunities to express their views, deliberately silencing them or making fun of them, of what they say or how they communicate. It may feature age or developmentally inappropriate expectations being imposed on children. These may include interactions that are beyond a child's developmental capability, as well as overprotection and limitation of exploration and learning, or preventing the child participating in normal social interactions. It may involve seeing or hearing the ill treatment of another. It may involve serious bullying, including cyberbullying, causing children frequently to feel frightened or in danger, or the exploitation or corruption of children. Some level of emotional abuse is involved in all types of maltreatment of a child, although it may occur alone. Some of the signs that a child who is suffering emotional abuse may show include excessive overreaction to a mistake that is made, continual self-deprecation, excessive rocking or thumb sucking or hair twisting, extreme compliance or aggression, drug, alcohol and substance misuse, or significant peer relationship difficulties. Our third type of abuse is neglect. Neglect is the persistent failure to meet a child's basic physical or psychological needs, likely to result in the serious impairment of the child's health or development. Neglect may occur during pregnancy, for example, as a result of maternal substance abuse. Once a child is born, neglect may involve a parent or carer failing to provide adequate food, clothing and shelter, including exclusion from home or abandonment. Signs of a child that is suffering neglect may include constant hunger, tiredness and/or poor physical and personal hygiene, untreated medical problems, destructive tendencies, social isolation, very poor self-esteem and relationships with peers, and perhaps excessive rocking, hair twisting or thumb sucking. Our final type of abuse is sexual abuse. This involves forcing or enticing a child or young person to take part in sexual activity, not necessarily involving a high level of violence. Whether or not the child is aware of what is happening, the activities may involve physical contact, including assault by penetration, or non-penetrative acts such as masturbation, kissing, rubbing and touching outside of clothing. They may also include non-contact activities, such as involving children looking at the production of sexual images, watching sexual activities, encouraging children to behave in sexually inappropriate ways, or grooming a child in preparation for abuse. Sexual abuse can take place online, and technology can be used to facilitate offline abuse. Sexual abuse is not solely perpetrated by adult males. Women can also commit acts of sexual abuse, as can other children. The sexual abuse of children by other children is a specific safeguarding issue in education. Some of the signs that you may see a child experiencing sexual abuse are: the child's sexual awareness is inappropriate to the child's age, self-harm, perhaps pregnancy, a sexually transmitted disease, a sudden change in behaviour or performance at school, having a fear of undressing, perhaps for PE, depression or withdrawal, drug, alcohol and substance abuse. I also want to make you aware of some other types of abuse, including CSE. This stands for Child Sexual Exploitation, but there's also Child Criminal Exploitation, CCE, and forms of so-called honour-based violence, including FGM, that stands for Female Genital Mutilation. They're all kinds of child abuse and they're all types of domestic abuse, and they attempt to draw children into violent extremism. They should be treated as safeguarding issues. If a teacher discovers that an act of FGM appears to have been carried out on a girl under the age of 18, they must report this to their DSL and the police. Sexting is also a child protection issue. Even if explicit material is sent or elicited without malicious intent, the consequences are serious and put those involved at risk of serious harm. Having or sending explicit material on digital devices is a criminal offence for those under 18. Pupils are taught about sexting as part of their internet safety education. The school takes incidences of sexting extremely seriously and deals with them in accordance with child protection procedures, including reporting these to the police. And finally, peer-on-peer abuse. All staff should recognise that children are capable of abusing their peers. This is most likely to include, but is not limited to, bullying, including cyberbullying, physical abuse such as hitting, kicking, shaking, biting, hair pulling, or causing physical harm, sexual violence and sexual harassment, sexting, which we talked about previously, and initiation or hazing type violence or rituals. It's more likely that girls will be victims of peer abuse and boys the perpetrators, but all peer-on-peer abuse is unacceptable and will be taken seriously. I really hope that going through these types of abuse, the signs and the symptoms, help you to feel more aware and comfortable with recognising anything that you might be concerned about in any of the pupils in our school.
Hello there, I'm Peter Elkington and I'm the Deputy Head of the Junior School here at Nottingham Girls High School. I'm also one of the Deputy Designated Safeguarding Leads. I'm going to talk to you about the procedures you must follow if a child reports to you that they have been abused. Essentially, I want you to remember 3 things: respond, record and report. And I will talk about those in a bit more detail. Number 1, respond. If a disclosure is made to you, you should do the following. Allow the pace of the conversation to be dictated by the pupil. Ask open questions which encourage the pupil to talk, such as, "Can you tell me what happened?" Accept what the pupil is saying and do not ask for further details. Acknowledge how hard it was for them to tell you and show by your voice and your tone, facial expression, that you are taking their concerns seriously. Note carefully and clearly any visible external signs of possible injury or neglect. And finally, reassure the pupil that they have done the right thing, that it is not their fault, and explain whom you will have to tell, which is the designated safeguarding lead, and why you must tell them. Number 2, record. Make brief notes at the time or immediately afterwards which record the date, the time, the place and the context of the disclosure or concern. Record what has actually been said, wherever possible using the child's exact words, even if they seem childish, rude or inappropriate. Do not make assumptions or your own interpretation. Your notes must be signed and dated. You must clearly distinguish between fact, observation, allegation and opinion, and record any observed injuries and bruises if possible. Try and note the non-verbal behaviour and the key words in the language used by the pupil. Complete a safeguarding concern form and attach any original notes and pass them to the designated safeguarding lead as soon as possible. You must appreciate that your records may be used in criminal proceedings or disciplinary investigations. And finally, number 3, report. Any concerns about a pupil must be discussed with the designated safeguarding lead, or in their absence, the deputy designated safeguarding lead, as soon as possible, and at the latest by the end of the school day.
Hello, my name's Brenda Williams and I'm the school nurse at Nottingham Girls High School. I'm also one of the DSLs who looks at safeguarding children and young people. I work Monday to Friday, I am full-time, and my email address is b.williams@not.gdst.net, and you can contact me at any time. Today I'm just going to go through some of the things that when a young person makes a disclosure that as the volunteer or the DSL or a member of staff that we should not do. The main thing is that we should make the young person feel comfortable and relaxed, but we should not ask any misleading or leading questions. We should also not be able to promise confidentiality, because the role of the DSL is that we do share information to safeguard young people, so we can't promise not to be confidential. The other thing is that we should not examine or ask the young person to show parts of their body to us unless it is with, I'd say, as me as a nurse. If I had a chaperone with me, then it would be another person, but routinely as a volunteer they should not examine a child without a medical officer or nurse present. Other things you shouldn't do is put words in the young person's mouth. We should not criticise the perpetrator, and again, which can be difficult, is not to show over emotion, like look shocked or anything. It's about reassuring the young person, making them feel comfortable, and again, do not make them feel guilty. And the main thing is just to promise that you can't investigate, you pass it on.
Hi, I'm Erin Skelton. I'm the head of sixth form at NGHS, one of the assistant heads as well, and I'm one of the deputy DSLs. I'm here today to talk to you over the course of several videos about several topics, some of which Laura Fowler mentioned in her video, so there may be some cross-referencing. The first topic that I'd like to talk to you about today is CSE, so child sexual exploitation. Child sexual exploitation is a form of child sexual abuse. It occurs when an individual or a group takes advantage of an imbalance in power to coerce or manipulate or deceive a child or young person into some form of sexual activity. Obviously, the young person has to be under 18. Sometimes it's in exchange for something that the victim needs or wants. Sometimes it's for the financial advantage or increased status of the perpetrator or facilitator. Sometimes the victim may be sexually exploited even if it appears that the sexual activity is consensual. And again, something to bear in mind, that sexual exploitation doesn't always involve physical contact. Sometimes it can just occur directly through the use of technology. So what does the law say? Obviously, the legal age of responsibility is 10. To protect younger children, the law says that children under the age of 13 can never legally consent. So any sexual activity whatsoever with a child aged 12 years or under will be subject to the maximum penalties. The age of consent for sexual activities is 16, and the commonly accepted age of adulthood is 18. And there are things just to bear in mind. Who is affected? Well, the earliest case of sexual exploitation that we're aware of was on an 8-year-old. It impacts boys and girls, and that's a commonly held misconception that it just affects girls. It happens in all ethnic and religious communities, and any young person can be targeted. So push factors, so who is effective? If there is a history of abuse or neglect or issues surrounding attachment or parental control, that can have an impact. Exposure to domestic violence, parental vulnerabilities, so alcohol, substance misuse, mental health issues, family breakdowns or disrupted home lives and or bereavements in the family, people with low self-esteem, poor self-image, or having been nurtured to be pleasing. SEND students can often be the victims of child sexual exploitation. There are cultural factors involved as well, so honor, community expectations, environmental factors such as gangs, poverties, local resources or the lack of local resources, a lack of awareness and understanding, trouble at school, and peer pressure and social perception. The pull factors, so why young people are drawn into sexual exploitation. They feel love, a feeling of being cared for, usually from someone older. They meet someone who thinks they're special. They gain acceptance from their peers. They receive alcohol, drugs, money, or gifts. It gives them a sense of confidence, excitement of the risk. Being offered somewhere to stay where there are no rules is often a pull factor. Gang acceptance or initiation. Being treated like an adult. Being given lifts or taken to new places. A sense of belonging or a sense of independence. CSE indicators, so things that you're looking for. Going missing for periods of time or regularly coming home late. Sometimes that also includes missing school. Appearing with unexplained gifts or new possessions. Good examples are mobile phones, jewelry, and luxury items. Excessive receipt of texts, phone calls, and multiple callers. Associating with other young people involved in exploitation. Associating with older friends or controlling individuals or groups. Suffering from sexually transmitted infections. Mood swings or changes in emotional well-being. Increased secretiveness. Drug and alcohol misuse. Displaying inappropriate sexualized behavior, particularly if that then doesn't relate to the age bracket that you would expect. Isolation from peers and social networks, and concerning use of the internet and other social media. Key facts: it can affect any child or young person under the age of 18, including 16 and 7-year-olds who can legally consent to have sex. It can involve force, violence, threats of violence, or enticement-based methods of compliance. It may occur without the victim's immediate knowledge, so through posting images on social media. It can be perpetrated by individuals or groups, males or females, adults or children. If it's children, it tends to be peer-on-peer abuse as well, which is something that I will talk about in the next video. It can be a one-off incident, it can be a series of incidents, and it can range from opportunistic to complexly organized abuse. The power imbalance typical of CSE may manifest itself in different ways. So for example, age, gender, sexual identity, cognitive ability, physical strength, status, etc. Children rarely self-report CSE, so it's really important that practitioners are always aware of potential indicators and risks. The next aspect of this video is to talk about county lines, because county lines does largely fit in with CSE. So county lines is the criminal exploitation where gangs and organized crime networks exploit children to sell drugs. Often these children are made to travel across counties, and they use dedicated mobile phones or lines to supply the drugs, hence the name county lines. Girls from middle-class backgrounds are often targeted because they are well-dressed, well-spoken, and are less likely to be stopped by police. In addition to this, they often have their own cars, so they're not reliant on public transportation. The other aspect of CSE, which I've included, also a section of peer-on-peer abuse, is sexting. So sexting is when someone shares sexual, naked, or semi-naked videos or images of themselves or others, or sends sexually explicit messages. They can be sent using mobile phones, tablets, smartphones, laptops, any device at all that allows you to show any kind of social media and messages. Sexting has a variety of names, so I've heard it referred to as trading nudes, dirties, pic for pic. What the law says about sexting. So sexting between peers can be seen as harmless, but creating or sharing explicit images of a child can be illegal, even if the person doing it is a child. A young person is breaking the law if they take an explicit video or photo of themselves or a friend, share an explicit image or a video of a child, even if it's shared between children of the same age, possessing, downloading, or storing an explicit image or video of a child, even if the child gave them permission for it to be created and distributed. As of January 2016 in England and Wales, if a young person is found creating or sharing images, the police can choose to record that crime has been committed, but that taking formal action is not in public interest, okay? The reason why I'm telling you that is because over the course of my career, I have come into situations where students have taken photographs of themselves and sent them to their romantic partners without realizing that they are breaking the law. Crimes recorded in this way are unlikely to appear on future records or checks unless the young person has been involved in similar activities, which may indicate that they're at risk. So people who are at risk of sexting, anyone can be at risk. Obviously, the major risk for an individual who takes photographs of themselves or who allows photographs to be taken of themselves is that those images are in the public domain. Young people can now normalize the use of social media, and it can lead to blackmail, bullying, and harm, which is a form of peer-on-peer abuse. Specifically, if you are dealing with a situation where you feel that it's sexting, you need to talk to a DSL straight away. If the concern is about sexting, please do not ask for copies of the material to be sent to you. Arrange for yourself or the DSL to confiscate the phone. Obviously, make a CPOMS referral, and then the DSL will follow that up. Hi, right, this is video 3. Video 3 is looking at honor-based violence and things like FGM. So honor-based violence tends to encompass a variety of things from forced marriage. So forced marriage is marriage which you are not consenting to. Often in cases of forced marriage within the UK, we're talking about girls who are sort of 16 to 18. So they're just on the cusp of adulthood under a legal context. It also encompasses FGM. So FGM is female genital mutilation, and FGM ranges from ritual cutting to the complete removal of the external female genitalia. It's also referred sometimes as female circumcision and female genital cutting, so it has a few names. Female genital mutilation occurs mainly in Africa and to a lesser extent in the Middle East and Asia. Although it's believed by many to be a religious issue, it's actually a cultural practice. And I think one of the key things to note is there are no health benefits to it. So who could be affected by FGM? There are particular communities which are more at risk, particularly groups in the UK. So groups in the UK where they originate from Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia, Sierra Leone, Sudan, Egypt, Nigeria, Eritrea, Yemen, Indonesia, and Afghanistan. In the UK, FGM occurs or tends to occur in areas with large populations of communities whose practice of FGM is usually down to first-generation immigrants, refugees and asylum seekers. In England and Wales, 23,000 girls under the age of 15 could currently be at risk of FGM. Key points. So it's not a religious practice. It occurs mostly to girls aged from 5 to 8 years old, but upwards to around 15. It's a criminal offence in the UK and has been since 1985. It's an offence now to take a girl abroad in order for a family to coerce her into having FGM. And the criminal penalties faced are now up to 14 years in prison. So the reasons for the practice: cultural identity, so it's an initiation into womanhood. Gender identity, so moving a girl from being a girl to a woman and enhancing her femininity. Sexual control, so reducing a woman's desire for sex. Hygiene and cleanliness, so an unmutilated woman is sometimes regarded as being unclean. Risk factors. So girls at risk would be girls with backgrounds where there's a low level of integration into UK society, where the mother or sister has undergone FGM, girls who are withdrawn from PSHE and PE, girls where there's a visiting female elder from their country of origin. Being taken on a long holiday to the family's country of origin is sometimes a risk factor, and talking about a special event or procedure to become a woman. There are specific times of the year which are higher risk than others. So the procedure tends to take place in the summer holidays, as the recovery period from FGM can be anywhere from about 6 to 9 weeks. Schools should be alert to the possibility of FGM as a reason why a girl in a high-risk category is absent from school, or where a family requests an authorized absence for just before or after the summer holidays. Although it's difficult to identify girls before FGM takes place, where girls from these high-risk groups return from long periods of absence with symptoms of FGM, advice should be sought from the police or social services. So post-FGM symptoms. So difficulty walking, sitting, standing, spending longer than normal in the toilet, unusual behavior after a lengthy absence, reluctance to undergo normal medical examinations, asking for help but may not be explicit about the problem due to embarrassment or fear. And then also things like not wanting to undertake PE or be seen to be changing. Long-term side effects. So difficulty urinating or incontinence, frequent or chronic vaginal, pelvic or urinary infections, menstrual problems, kidney damage and possible failure, cysts and abscesses, pain when having sex, infertility, complications during pregnancy and childbirth, and emotional and mental health problems. The other topic that relates to this as well is something called breast ironing, which is becoming more pronounced in UK society. Again, it's something that tends to be around honor-based abuse, so I've included it. So breast ironing is practiced in 10 regions of Cameroon and has been reported in Benin, Ivory Coast, Chad, Guinea, Kenya, Togo, Zimbabwe as well. So breast ironing is the flattening of breast tissue by using implements and equipment. Good examples are spoons or brooms, stones, pestles, breast bands, etc. So the reasons for the practice is carried out under the misguided intention to protect women and girls from men's sexual harassment. It's believed that by suppressing a girl's development of her breast, she will be protected from rape, kidnapping, sexual harassment, and early forced marriage as well. The risk factors, again, very similar to FGM. So low level of integration in UK society, mother or sister who has undergone breast ironing, girls who are withdrawn from PSHE and PE, a visiting female elder from the country of origin, being taken on a long holiday to the family's country of origin, and talk about a procedure to protect them from harassment. So long-term problems associated with breast ironing would be related cancers, abscesses, itching and discharge of milk, dysymmetry of the breast, cysts, breast infections, severe fever, tissue damage, and even the complete disappearance of one or both breasts, and obviously emotional and mental health problems as well. And again, in all cases, if you suspect that there is a potential risk or one of these procedures has been carried out, please talk to a DSL and make a CPOMS referral. Okay, so the second video is looking at peer-on-peer abuse. And as you probably gathered from the first video on CSE, lots of things fall into the category of peer-on-peer abuse. So peer-on-peer abuse occurs when a young person is exploited, bullied, and/or harmed by their peers who usually are a similar age. Everyone directly involved in peer-on-peer abuse is under the age of 18, so they're children legally in the eyes of the law. Peer-on-peer abuse can relate to various forms of abuse, not just sexual abuse and exploitation. The behavior in question is harmful to the child perpetrator as well as to the victim, and sometimes children within the vicinity, so friendship circles and things like that. It's an emerging area. It's a very complex area to manage because obviously it encompasses lots of different aspects of safeguarding. So peer-on-peer abuse can include any form of physical, sexual, emotional, or financial abuse. It could involve coercive control exercised between children and within children's relationships. Sometimes those relationships are romantic and intimate, and sometimes they aren't. It can take various forms, so serious bullying, relationship abuse, domestic violence, child sexual exploitation, so CSE from the previous video, youth violence, harmful sexual behavior, and sometimes gender-based violence as well. Peer-on-peer abuse, including verbal abuse, needs to be recognized as a potential safeguarding issue. It can't be tolerated or passed off as horseplay, teasing or banter, or a process in which you're going through because you're growing up. The other thing as well to bear in mind is that it can have wider implications to children outside of the friendship circle and not just the perpetrator and the victim. So examples: bullying, including cyberbullying. Physical abuse examples would be hitting, kicking, shaking, biting, hair pulling, and otherwise causing physical harm. Sexual violence and sexual harassment, upskirting, sexting, which we've just talked about in the previous video, initiation and hazing types of violence as well. So key things to think about: it's likely that girls will be the victim of peer-on-peer abuse and boys will be the perpetrator. However, it can happen to anyone. As I said, it can't be seen as banter, having a laugh, or part of growing up. We as a school minimize the risks of such abuse by ensuring that all the members of the school community have a real clear understanding of what it is. We look at healthy and respectful relationships in the PSHE program. We look at wider societal factors such as sexist stereotypes and language, and how to recognize, respond, and report peer abuse. Who could be affected? Anyone. And that's really important. So because of the variation involved when you're talking about peer-on-peer abuse, there isn't necessarily a particular group or cohort that are more vulnerable than anyone else. You may see changes in behavior. And again, some of the changes that you will see will fall in line with other types of abuse that you have learned about. So you may see students becoming disrespectful, asking inappropriate questions, distancing themselves from their friends and their family. You may see changes in friendship groups, becoming detached or withdrawn, changes in their appearance, unhealthy use of the internet, signs of anger, stress, or upsets, but then also signs similar to individuals suffering from sexual, emotional, or physical abuse as well. What do you do if you have a situation where you feel that you need to make a referral? Obviously, contact one of us and have a conversation with us and make a CPOMS referral as well. Hi, okay, this is video 4, and video 4 is on radicalization and the PREVENT agenda. So radicalization is the name given to the process that moves a person to legitimize their support or use of violence. It's effectively where terrorism starts. What radicalization tends to look like when you are looking at a child who's being radicalized is it tends to involve a use of icon or symbol or the adoption of an ideology of hate or division. Public displays of hate or division, so sometimes graffiti would be an example of that. Grooming via social media platforms, face-to-face grooming, involvement in extremist groups that use antagonistic or divisive language, and again, that's often alongside the handing out of material that promotes hatred or division. Sometimes that can also include travel to an area of conflict to offer support. So who can be directly affected by radicalization? Well, again, anyone, but radicalization feeds on an emotional connection. And again, the emotional connection tends to be to a far right or far left ideology or a group which distorts a particular religion. So a good example would be Islam. For this reason, people most likely to be radicalized are those where ascribing to a group or ideology makes them feel something. So a good example, they feel understood, they feel part of a special group, they have a purpose and meaning to their life, they feel that they can right injustice and marginalization, and they feel that they've been supported and needed when they're vulnerable. So again, risk factors would include feeling insignificant, marginalized, being invisible, feeling aggrieved or angry or frustrated, feeling confused, lost, or looking for meaning in their life. Family context could have an impact, a traumatic experience in childhood, low level of integration into UK society. But again, anyone of any age can be vulnerable to radicalization. You may see changes in behavior. So you may see a student becoming disrespectful, asking inappropriate questions, distancing themselves from friends and family, changing their friendship groups, quick changes in beliefs or their views, becoming detached or withdrawn, changes in appearance, unhealthy use of the internet, signs of anger, stress, or upset, threats to carry out violent acts, and threats to go to areas of conflict. I think one of the key things to note as well is that most people who are actually being radicalized don't believe that they're being radicalized, and that's something significant. So prevent. So a lot of you will have heard the term prevent, you may have heard the term channel, but prevent is one of the 4 strands of the government's counterterrorism strategy. It's called Contest. And it's a national initiative to support frontline staff in recognizing and reporting suspected radicalization. Any member of a school community, teaching staff, admin, whoever you are classified as frontline staff. Prevent is a really important part of our safeguarding policy, and staff were encouraged to read the Prevent section of the safeguarding section on Firefly. The Home Office also produces lots of resources. One of the really, really good ones is an e-learning package on Prevent and Channel. Channel is the radicalization intervention program. And again, it would be really good for you to go online and do those e-learning packages. So Prevent guidance if you suspect radicalization. So whoever the concern originates from, the response really needs to be proportionate. Young people of all backgrounds go through phases of transition, so context has to be considered when you're assessing a concern. Of the behaviors that may cause concern, some may be quite blatant. So if they're verbal, good example, a change in language, an obsession on a topic, being closed to debate, right through to actually declaring intent to commit violence. Open free speech should be encouraged. People in danger of being radicalized should feel that they can question and debate what they're being presented with. And it's really interesting because particularly those conversations are had with teaching staff where they feel that there is a strong existing relationship, but not necessarily friend or family. Above all, there's a real need to be sensitive. So you know that seeing a noticeable increase in someone's interest in religion or politics, isn't always something to be concerned about. On the contrary, sometimes it represents a positive change in behavior. It's only if those are coupled with some of the other behaviors that I've mentioned previously, good example would be a use of extremist or divisive language, that you might feel genuinely concerned. So trust your judgment in knowing when someone might need help. Use the same procedures for any other safeguarding concern and go directly to a DSL. Prevent uses a acronym, so notice, check, share. So notice is to articulate what gave you cause for concern. Check, obviously, is to look at who can best put that concern into context for you. And then obviously take that to a DSL, so share it with a DSL.
So hopefully this video has given you a really good overview of the safeguarding policy at NGHS. But here are a few principles to remember. The first one is that safeguarding is everyone's responsibility and we all need to take it seriously. Secondly, if a child comes to you to disclose a safeguarding issue, then you must report it to a DSL. You cannot promise confidentiality to the child if they are at risk of harm. If the child is in immediate risk of danger, you would need to report your concerns immediately so that we don't put the child at any further risk of harm. If they are not at immediate risk of harm, the concern would still need to be reported by the end of the school day. So, on behalf of me and my DSLs, thank you very much for watching this safeguarding video, and we really hope that you enjoy working at NGHS.